All right, welcome back to another video. Now, if you're not familiar with any of the other videos I've made in the past, essentially I run a company that builds reports and dashboards specifically for businesses using Odoo ERP. And in the past year, we've helped over 20 businesses move all of their reporting from Odoo into Power BI. Now, what I wanted to do with this video was show you how you can build a CRM dashboard exactly like this one, completely from scratch. So I'm going to run through all of the tables that you need to pull from your Odoo database. I'm going to run through the Power BI data model, and then I'm going to run through how you build all of these visuals. Now, what I wanted to do first was just quickly go over each of the visuals and the functionality that you have within Power BI service and kind of how powerful this can be once you actually get it set up. All right, so first of all, at the top here, we've got three different visuals. We've got our pipeline value. So this is the expected revenue of all of the open opportunities that we have within CRM. Then we've got our won opportunities in the last 30 days. That's pretty self-explanatory. And then we've got all of the new opportunities that we've created in the last 30 days just to make sure that our sales reps are actually doing their job. And then down the bottom left here, we've got the pipeline value by salesperson. Now you'll notice if I hover over that visual, we can actually get a breakdown of all the individual opportunities. And what we can also do is if we right click on that, click drill through, we can go into a separate page where we can say if we want to look at this opportunity, we can actually click on that and it's going to take us into the record in Odoo. Just going back. Now this visual up here is just a funnel of all the open stages and how much revenue we have in each stage. Once again, say if I wanted to see everything that I've got in proposition, so these are all the opportunities that we're expecting to close pretty soon, I can right click on that, go drill through, and then you'll notice that I can see all of the ones that are sitting in the proposition stage. Okay, next up, we've got our forecasted revenue. So if you haven't watched the previous video, I ran through how you can build an invoice sales query, so all of your actual revenue. So in this visual, I've combined the actual revenue with our forecasted revenue. So the forecasted revenue being everything that we're actually expecting to close within the next few months. All right, up the top right, we've got our opportunities won versus lost. And I've added a toggle so that you can switch between a count of opportunities that you've won or lost and also the expected revenue of those opportunities. So as you can see, we've lost 5 opportunities in January and we've won 3. And that has made up, well, we've actually won more revenue than we've lost. We've won 24K in revenue and we've lost 7.5K. Then finally, we've got our conversion rate. So this is pretty much of all of the opportunities that we've created, how many of those did we actually win? So we've won 38% in January and our target was 35%. So we're above our target. How good. All right. So I think that's pretty much it. Let's just jump into it. Okay, so similar to the previous video, before I actually do any development, I kind of just wanted to do a bit of a breakdown on what we're actually trying to accomplish with this dashboard, and then we'll list down all of the tables that we need to get from the database. That way we've just got it all there and we don't have to go back and forth between Odoo and Power BI all the time. So I've done up a list of questions that we want to answer. I'll quickly run through them. So the first one is, who is our best performing sales rep by revenue? So how are we going to get that? That is going to be the expected revenue by sales rep out of CRM. So that's going to be expected revenue by rep. The next one is, what is our conversion rate or our conversion percentage? So that's of all of the opportunities that we've created, how many of those did we actually win? So of total opportunities, how many did we win? So how many opportunities did we win versus lose in dollars? And then also in just a count of the opportunities. That's pretty straightforward. That's very similar to the one above it. And then what is the average opportunity value? So that's just the total number of opportunities divided by the expected revenue. And then the last one is, what is our expected future revenue? So this one is actually, I'm just going to combine it with the revenue query that we built in the previous video. So we're going to see, what was our actual revenue, and then we're going to compare it versus what's the future revenue based on what's in our pipeline. All right, so the next step is figuring out, well, what tables do we need to pull in to Power BI? Now, if you haven't watched the previous video, I would recommend you quickly go look at it. But what you'll need to do to actually see where all of the tables are stored is you'll have to activate the developer mode. So if we go into settings, scroll down, and then hit activate the developer mode, we'll click that. It was already activated before, but that's fine. Now, once that loads back in, so that doesn't want to load, there we go. So now if we jump back into CRM and we click on list view, now we hover over one of the columns, we can see that all of the data for CRM is stored in the crm.lead table, because as you can see, it's in that that model says crm.lead. So we know we need crm.lead. Now up here, we also want to get our sales rep information. So if you go into one of these leads and then hover over the salesperson field, you'll notice that the model is crm.lead. The field is user ID. So that once again, once you see that it's an ID field, you know it's a number and you actually don't have any information about that user. So we have to join that to a lookup table. Now, down the bottom, you'll see that there's a relation field called res.users. So we'll list that down because that's going to have some of the information about our rep. A little bit of a trick here is res.users mainly has the user login, the time that they logged in, all that sort of stuff. It doesn't actually have their name. So we need to join that with res.partner. So res.partner, pretty much, it has so much information. It has our customers, our vendors, all of the contacts, all of our users that we have set up in Odoo. So we need to join that with res.users as well. And the last one we need is all of our revenue data, which we've actually already got in Power BI. Okay, so now that we know everything that we're going to try to pull from our Odoo database, and also what we're actually trying to accomplish with this dashboard, let's jump into Power BI and actually grab some of the tables. So as I mentioned in the previous video, the way I'm accessing this Odoo database is through a BigQuery connector. I did do a video on how you access the Odoo database or your Odoo database previously, so go watch that if you're struggling. Then I will select this and grab the tables that I need. So we know we want the res users table, the res partner table, and the CRM lead table. So we'll pull that into Power Query. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is normalize these tables a little bit. You'll notice there's so many columns, so we only need a few of those columns. So I just want to make it a little bit cleaner so it's easier to read. So from res.users, the only thing that we want is actually our login, our email. We also want the ID column because we'll be matching that to the stuff that's in CRM. So we know, well, what sales reps are actually assigned to each opportunity. So the first thing we're going to do is go choose columns, get rid of all that. So we know we want the ID because that's going to be the user ID. Then we know we want the partner ID because, as I mentioned, we're going to have to link that to res.partner to actually know, what rep, what rep belongs to each user ID, because that's, for whatever reason, it's not actually stored in this table. Well, you can see it is here, but it's stored in a really weird way. So we're going to join that with res.partner. And then the last one we're going to want is, let's grab the login as well, just so we have the email address. Cool. Now let's go to res.partner. So as I said, we want the actual name and then also the ID. So we go ID and then the name. We're going to be joining that with res.users. So let's do that join now. It's as simple as going home and then clicking merge queries, clicking res.partner. That's the partner ID here. And this is the partner ID that we're joining with. So this should be a match, which it is, 10 of 10. Click OK. And then let's expand that and click, yep. All right, so now we know this is the sales rep name. Perfect. Usually I would move this res.partner into not required, but we actually might need it because, say later on, if we want to report on, what are the customers that are assigned to each opportunity, then we've also got all of our customers in here. So we might actually use that later. So I'll keep it. Now, the next one is our crm.lead table. Now, once again, you'll notice there's so many columns in this. And also the dates are stored in a really weird way. So what I'm going to do first of all is actually just detect the data type. So get Power BI to detect whether these are all text fields, which ones are date fields, which ones are numbers. The way you do that is you click home and then you actually click transform and then you click detect data type. You notice that formats all of these. All right, so let's quickly jump back into Odoo and let's just see, well, what do we want to pick up from our CRM table? So we know we want to get the user ID. We know we want to get we'll get the partner ID. So we have the customer that's assigned. What else? So In order to, because we're trying to figure out like when we can expect to turn an opportunity into revenue, we're going to use this expected closing date. So that's the date underscore deadline. So I'll go back and write that down. We also may as well grab the create date of the opportunity. What else? So we're going to want the expected revenue. So expected underscore revenue. Got the expected closing date. We may as well grab the priority in case we want to flag the opportunities that we want to focus on. Email's not so relevant for us. We also want the stage. Actually, I missed that in the previous step. So we want the stage ID, and then we also want to get the CRM.stage so we can know where each opportunity is in the pipeline. And that actually might do us for now. So let's go back into Odoo and let's grab that. So if I go choose columns, and we get the create, the first we get create date, and then we wanted the expected revenue, close. Date underscore deadline is the closing date. That's why you write the list. Otherwise I would have been here all day. Then we also want the priority, the stage ID, priority, stage ID, and the expected revenue. We've already got that. What else? Partner ID, user ID, partner ID. And then let's also get the status. So the won status. Essentially, this just shows us whether an opportunity is won, lost, or pending. If it's pending, it just means it hasn't been won or lost and it's open. So we want that as well. And I'll quickly just do a check to see that we don't want anything else. Let's actually get the date that it was closed, which means that was the date that it was either won or lost. And that will do us for now. We can always go back in and grab those fields if we need it. Okay, so that has loaded in, which is good. Now, one trick that you'll have to look out for is that Odoo stores all of the date/time columns in UTC. So I'm working on Australian Eastern Standard Time, so that's actually 10 hours, or that's 10 hours ahead of UTC time, which means in order for the data to be accurate, we actually need to add 10 hours to all of these date/time columns. Otherwise, we might have opportunities that are saying that they were created yesterday when in fact they were created today, because this has actually taken 10 hours off the correct time. So the way that I do that is by just adding a few custom columns. This is a lot easier to do in SQL, but I'll show you how you do it in M code as well. So if you go over to add column, click custom column, and then we go date closed, and we call this AEST. Then we simply I already had the formula copied, and we get date closed, then click OK. And then we just go in and we do that same thing for the create date, AEST. The create date. And then the final one is, so date deadline is actually already a date. So we actually don't need to do that either. So we're not really worried about the time. So what I'll do is I'll change both of those just to date fields because we don't want to worry about the time at this point. Date. Okay, and then what we might do is actually get rid of the other date field so that we don't confuse ourselves later. So get rid of date close, create date, and deadline date. All right, now the last thing we need to do is just pull in the table that has the information about our stages. So I did go in and grab that, so we can pull that into Power BI. Just load this in. Okay, CRM stage, there it is. Grab that. This might take a second to load. Okay. So you can see once again, this, similar to the previous video, this stores the values in a really strange way. So we really just need the stage ID and the name. And then we can just do a formula to format that correctly. Let's just, for the sake of time, let's just merge that with the stage ID column so that we've got it in the table. So we're linking the ID from CRM stage with the stage underscore ID. So once again, this should be a perfect match. Otherwise, something's wrong. There you go, 44 of 44. Add that in. Don't need to worry about the ID. Just want the name. Stage name. All right, perfect. Now we just have to load this into Power BI. Okay, so now that we have all of the tables loaded in, we can actually just start developing the data model for this report. So this is the data model of the invoice sales query that we built in the previous video. So I might actually add that into the same page that we've got it all on one view. So let's just pull in all of the tables that we need. So we want res.users. That's one of our lookup tables. The data table we're using is our CRM lead. And we also want to get, what else do we need? That's really it. So the first step is linking the date field that we want to use for all of the visuals to our calendar tables so that we can combine both our invoice sales and also the stuff from our CRM table. So let's just, for now, let's use the create date. Let's drag that over to the dates column. That should be a manage one field. And then let's link the res users table to our CRM table via the user ID. Okay. So let's just make sure that's working correctly. So let's go over and we'll duplicate a page and just call this CRM dashboard. Get rid of this. Product category is not going to be relevant. But let's actually, we do have a customer lookup table here that we used in the previous video. So we actually doubled up with our res partner table. So we don't need that. We also don't need CRM stage because we've already merged that with our CRM table. So that's irrelevant. So let's actually connect our customer lookup to our CRM table via the ID, because that's our customer lookup is res partner, by the way. So we'll link that. Okay. Now let's just create a simple table just to check everything's working right. So we'll drag in our dates field, which is the creation date of the, well, it's the dates field from our calendar table, but it's a link to the create date of our opportunity. And let's also just do up a couple of measures. So the first and the main one that we're going to use is the expected revenue in dollars. So that one's super easy. That is simply the sum of the CRM lead expected revenue column. Let's also format that in dollars. Now we're also we want to report on the number of opportunities. So the way that we get that is that in the CRM lead table, each one of these lines relates to an opportunity, which means that in order to get a count of the opportunities, we just have to do a distinct count of the ID. So we just want to, or we could just count all of the rows. Either way works. The way that I usually do it is just a distinct count of the IDs. So what we'll do is we'll get a new measure, make sure we're adding that to our measures table. So number of opportunity, I'll make it count of opportunities. Opportunities equals a distinct count of the ID column from CRM lead. Actually, we didn't even get our ID column from CRM lead. That was a bit silly, but we can accomplish the same thing with count rows. There you go. So now we've got those measures done up. I'll quickly just kind of go over how they work. So we've got all of the dates from our calendar table in this table. Now if we were to drag the expected revenue and count of opportunities in here, as you can see, it's now got rid of all of the blank dates apart from this one here, which just means there's probably some dates that we have that weren't in our calendar tables. I just had to refresh them to pull in those dates. All right, so now we know the expected revenue for all of the opportunities on each day. If we wanted to, we could add the start of month so we know, okay, well, what have we got in each month? There you go. So now it's showing us. We'll just make that a little bit clearer. There's that. All right. So here, now we've got each month. Now, as it currently stands, we don't have any filters applied to this table at all, which means we're currently showing opportunities that are lost, won, pending, pretty much everything. So if we were to apply a filter, which showed all of just the opportunities that were won, we would add that one status to a slicer, and then we can filter it. So if we go lost, we go, okay, so we've only lost 5 opportunities in January, and that was for a total of 7.5K. And if we want to click one, we can see, all right, we've also only won 3 opportunities, and that was in January as well, for roughly 24K. And then the rest of them are all open. Now, the next thing we would do is I'll go back into Odoo and I'll grab all of the things that we're actually trying to tick off, and we'll put it in a little text box so we know. So insert text box. All right. So here are all of the questions that we're trying to answer with the dashboard. So we'll get them all in a way that looks a little bit ugly, and then we'll work on making the dashboard a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. All right. So the first one is, who is our best performing sales rep by revenue? Now that one's super easy. We can use a table visual for that. I usually think that's a good way to visualize it. Start of month, we're not really interested in, because we're going to be filtering the date range using this date slicer up the top here. So we want our sales rep. So we're going to pull that in from our res users table, res underscore users table. So sales rep name. And we want the expected revenue. Okay. As you can see, there is some blank sales reps there, so we probably need to go in and refresh the data at some point to clear out those blanks, but that has pretty much done what we wanted to. So that's our expected revenue by rep. I can then filter that and see, well, the blank is at the top, but Blake Edwards is our top rep. What a guy. And then what is our conversion rate? Okay, so conversion rate, we need to do another measure. So the measure is going to be conversion percentage, which is going to equal, so if we do a variable and we just say that's the, it's not, we'll call that total, which equals the count of opportunities. So that's all of the opportunities. Now we're going to do a variable for the won opportunities, which is equal to, if we calculate the number of count of opportunities where the status, so the status of the opportunity equals 1, then we're going to do the same thing, but for lost, just now bracket here, lost, oppos, change that to lost. All right. So now we can return that our conversion rate is equal to divide actually, we didn't even need this. All we need is the won opportunities, because we just want to divide the won opportunities by the total. And if that returns an error, just give us blank. Okay. So the best way to visualize this, I usually find, is in a line chart. That's just add a line chart. Let's go conversion percentage into the values section. There you go. And then bear in mind, there's not a huge amount of data, unfortunately, in the Odoo database, and Odoo only gives you a set of demo data. So this is kind of just showing us 1 month, which is a bit of a shame. It's also, anyways, let's keep that as it was. So because all of our opportunities were created in January, that's why it's showing us only opportunities in January. Plus it's only showing us opportunities that were won or lost, so ones that are actually finalized. So now our conversion percentage, we actually want to change that to 0. And because there's only one value, we might actually just change it to a column chart so it looks a bit better. So that's going to be months. So conversion percentage by month, that's right. Also, don't worry about how ugly this is. I know, we're going to change it. Okay, so we've got this one done. We've got this one done. And how many opportunities did we win versus lose? Okay, so let's add another bar chart. Now let's get our expected revenue. Sub that out. And let's also add the status into the legend. And we're going to get rid of the stuff that's open because we're not concerned with that. So we just want lost or won. So you can see we've got a little legend here. Now let's just make that bottom center so we know. Okay. So as you can see, we've got $7,500 that we lost and $23,800 that we won. And that was in January 2026. So usually, just for the sake, I mean, we're going to change this later, but let's just make lost red and let's make one a super ugly green color. Why not? There we go. Okay, perfect. So now we've got this one here as well. And we also wanted the how many opportunities did we win or lose, the actual count of opportunities. So one thing that you can do is we could add the count as a tooltip. So if I added that here, we've got 23,800 opportunities won, and the number of opportunities was 3. And same with loss, we lost 5 opportunities. The total was $7,500. Now that's a super easy way to do it. Another way that we could do it is obviously just duplicating that column chart and just changing the measure from expected revenue to count of opportunities. I just change that. And as you can see, 3 and 5. All right. Now the next one is average opportunity value by rep. Now, as we said, that's the total number of opportunities divided by the expected revenue. So the way we do that is we go average expected revenue. Actually, we just go average opportunity value, which equals the expected revenue divided by the total or count of opportunities. There you go. So once again, if we were to put that in a line chart, we can see that the average opportunity value for each month was 10K, 27K, 40K, and 11K. All right, and then what is our expected future revenue? Okay, so this is the last one that we're going to do. And as I mentioned, we're going to combine this with our actual revenue data that we did in the previous video, which is living in the invoice sales. So obviously you need to have your revenue actual figure. So if I go into revenue actual, I thought I had a measure, which is revenue actual. Let me just create a measure, which is revenue actual. And that's the sum of revenue from invoice sales. I thought I already had one. Oh, well, let's just call it 2. All right. So one thing that I know that I'm going to have to add is that my calendar table currently only goes up to the current date. So it's not actually going to show me any future months because it doesn't have data for that. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go in and change the calendar table so it ends at the same, or it ends on the last opportunity closing date that we have. That way we can actually see what our future expected revenue is. So if I add a revenue actual number to this, okay. Alrighty. I've got our revenue actual figures, and I will check back in once I've added or I've made that change to the calendar table. All right, so I've gone in and I've changed the calendar table, so it now ends in July 2026 instead of today's date. Now, currently, as it stands in the data model, our CRM table is linked to our calendar table using the create date field. Now, that means that, say, if we have an opportunity that was created in January that we're expecting to win in March, regardless of the date in March, it's still going to show up in January. So in order to fix that, we then need to change the relationship between the CRM table and the calendar table. So the way we do that, and we actually did grab this field originally, but for some reason I didn't pull it in. We're going to have to grab the deadline date. So if you remember, that's actually the date that we're expecting to close the opportunity. So that's the date that we're expecting to win it. All right, it's Blake from the future here. I realized when I was editing the video that when I went into Power Query, it didn't actually share the Power Query screen because it's a pop-up. So what I was doing was I was grabbing the deadline date from the CRM lead table. Now, the way you do that is you click the transform data button here, go down to the table that you want to grab an extra field from. You'll notice that we've got a removed other columns step in Power Query. Click on that and then add the column that you want. So in that example, I went in and I added the deadline date, which is this one here. So that would have been, that wouldn't have been selected. So just click on the date deadline, click OK. And then if you have another step, you just need to make sure that that step hasn't taken it away as well. So if I click on that and then I select it again, then you move over and you click close and apply, and that's it. All right, back to Past Blake. We'll wait for that to load in. Okay, so that's loaded in. Now, theoretically, this is what it's going to look like. Say if instead of using our calendar table, we use the expected closing date field. If I grab that, expected close date, replace that. Okay, expected revenue. Now you can see that there's some expected revenue in February 2026 and the start of February as well. Now, that's actually not the best way to do it because we need a visual that combines both our revenue from our invoice sales and then also the expected revenue from our CRM. So let's change that back to start of month from our calendar table. And the way we deal with that is we actually create a relationship between the expected close date and the calendar date. Okay, so you'll see that the relationship is dashed. That means that it's inactive. Now we actually have to activate that relationship using a measure. So we'll call this forecast expected revenue. And the formula is calculate expected revenue. And then we use the use relationship. And that is our dates column and then also our expected close date column. All right, so now let's pull that one in instead of our expected revenue. So as you can see, we've got some expected revenue in January, February, March, and now let's include our actual revenue. So add that measure in. Perfect, so now you can see we've got about 3K in revenue in December, about 12K in January. We're still expecting to pull in another 50K in January as well. And then we've got some revenue in February and March as well. All right. So in the essence of saving time, I've actually gone in and created a first draft of this dashboard. And so none of these measures are really done up yet. I'll go through each of those so you can kind of follow along. But this is kind of what it's going to look like. I think this pretty much covers the majority of the visuals that we have on this page. The only thing that we need to add is the count of opportunities. But apart from that, this has pretty much got everything. So let's first just start with this top visual here, which is pipeline value. So this should just be all of the expected revenue of the open opportunities that we have in Odoo. So if I click on this, you can see that we're pulling in the expected revenue, and I've already added a filter, which is one status is pending. So this one's pretty much good to go as it is. Now the next one is one opportunities in the last 30 days. So if you click on this, we've got expected revenue, and then I've also added a calculated column to the calendar table. So it picks up which days are in the last 30 days. So that's a last 30 days flag. I'll just quickly highlight this so you can go in and copy that if you want. Just pause the video if you need to. Now, one thing you'll notice is that this is using the FC expected revenue. So if I click on that measure, you'll see that that's using the expected close date, which actually isn't right. We actually need to use the close date because this is only looking at opportunities that we've actually won. Oh. All right, so let's change, we'll create another measure. So let's just call this closed revenue. So that's going to be calculate expected revenue, and we're going to use the relationship dates to actual close date, which is date closed. Now, one thing you'll need to remember is that we need to actually add a relationship between these two fields. So if I go back into the data model and then I add a relationship between date closed and the dates column, okay, that should fix that error. Now that we use the close date instead of the expected close date. Now the next visual is the new opportunities in the last 30 days. So pretty much that's just all of the opportunities that we've created in the last 30 days. So we're using that same flag on the calendar table and we're just pulling in the expected revenue. So that's pretty straightforward. Now, the next one is pipeline value by salesperson. So this is all the open or the open opportunities by salesperson. This is pretty straightforward. We've got the sales rep and we've got the expected revenue, so we don't need to change anything there. Then we've got the sales funnel. So once again, more expected revenue by stage. Now, one thing I might change is we'll actually format these stages so they don't have that weird EN US at the start of it, but we'll do that after. Now, the next one is forecasted revenue. So as you can see, I've made it so that the actuals, so this is from our invoice sales query, that's in blue, and then in red is the expected revenue. So if I hover over both the measures, you can see we've got the revenue actual, and then we've got the forecast expected revenue. So I think that one's pretty much good to go. And you'll notice we've also got a status filter on that. So it's only showing us the open opportunities because we actually just want to see the revenue that we haven't closed out yet. And obviously all these opportunities are expected to be closed in the future. So none of these are actually done yet. All right, so revenue won versus lost. Now let's see what this is using. So that's using the forecast expected revenue. So that's actually not right as it currently stands. We just need to change that to our measure that we made over here, which is closed expected revenue. So actually didn't change that before, so we'll change that. And then let's change that to closed revenue as well. That gets rid of the blank. All right. Now the next one is conversion rate. So once again, because this is actually just using whatever our active relationship is in the calendar table, we're currently just looking at create date, but we actually want to use date closed here as well because we're only concerned about the opportunities that we've already converted or that we've already lost. So we need to change that. If we make another measure called, maybe we just change our conversion percentage. Let's create a separate measure. So closed conversion. All right. We just change the measure here and that should be good. Close conversion. And you can see that significantly changes the conversion rate, actually makes it a lot better. Remove decimals, change the color of that. All right, and I've also added a target line here. I've just set it at 35%. The way that you do that is you click this little icon up here, go into y-axis constant line, change this, or add line, just change it to target, set the value as 0.35, and then added it, change the color of it to red to indicate that it's a target. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the visuals. Now, the next thing we'll do is we'll adjust the formatting on the stage. Now, the way that we'll do that is let's just go into CRM and see all of the open stages. So we've got new, and we're not concerned with one. So new, proposition, and qualified. Now, if we go back into Power Query, and we'll go into CRM stage. Now, one way you can do this is, first off, we can actually just, let's actually duplicate this. Let's call it stage formatted. And now let's replace values and let's get rid of everything that has this English US, replace with blank. That to load. All right, now we can just grab the values in between the quotations. So you go to transform and then extract text between delimiters. Start is the quotation, the end is the quotation. Okay, now you can see it's formatted nicely. And now we can close and apply that. All right, so that's loaded in now. If we quickly just go over and have a look, we'll just check. All right, so it's all formatted correctly. Now, one thing I did want to change was when you go over to the funnel, you'll notice that the stages actually aren't in order. So we really want that to show as new, qualified, and then proposition. So the way that we change that is by going to the stage formatted table, adding a column, and we'll just call this sort order, and we'll make that a switch function, which is true. So if the so 1 qualified proposition. Okay, so actually looking at the ID, it's actually already in order. So the way that we can do it is just clicking name, sort by column, and then ID. Now, if we go back to our data model, we just have to establish a relationship between that new formatted table we made and our stage ID. So if we do that, and then we go back here and we change that to our name column from the formatted table, stage. And now if we should, I think it's already sorted, but if you want, you can go sort by stage and then sort by ascending. All right. Now we're not totally interested in the stuff that we've already won. So let's actually just filter that out. There we go. All right. We might make the proposition stage blue as well, because this really should be stuff that we've pretty much locked in. We're just waiting for them to approve the quote. We'll go to colors, proposition. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a toggle so that we can select between the revenue. So this is currently showing us that we've won 24K and we've lost 8K, but we actually want to see the count of opportunities as well. So I know we can already see that on the tooltip, but just for the sake of the video, I'll show you how you can do it with a toggle as well. So I've already created a little toggle bar here, but you can use pretty much any button in Power BI for this. So we'll add that in. Now we're going to create a disconnected table that has the two options that we want. So we'll go home and then click enter data, call this toggle. And the first option will be count, and the next one will be revenue. So we'll load that in. Okay. Now we just need to create a measure which essentially says, actually first I'll just add that into the button. Now we've got count and revenue. And actually, because you'll see in this table, we're using closed revenue here, we also need to count the closed opportunities. So the way that we can do that is by just copying our closed revenue measure. Close. That's going to be the count of opportunities. All right. So let's create that measure. And we'll call that count/revenue. And that's going to equal, so if the selected value of what's in our toggle button is equal to count, return the closed oppos, otherwise return the closed revenue. Close/revenue here. All right, and let's just format that like this, and then we can drag that in. And you see it's formatting on the data labels weird, so we'll just remove it's got 3 and 5. So you see, because it's selected on count, we can see that we've won 3 opportunities, we've lost 5. Then if we wanted to switch that to revenue, we just click on that, and now it's showing us that we've won 24K in revenue and we've lost 7,500. The next thing I'll do is I'll quickly show you how you can set up tooltips and drill throughs on each visual, so you can actually see the detail related to each of the visuals. So it's pretty easy. Just create another page, and I've already done it for the sake of time, but this is just a simple table visual that has all of the detail about each of the opportunities. Now what you want to do is you want to go up to the page settings and select Allow Users Tooltip, click on that, and then go over to your visual. So I'll use this one down the bottom left, double click on it, and then search tooltip again. And then you can see it's auto selected the tooltip page. Now, when we go over to the visual and we hover over it, we can see all of the opportunities that actually relate to that 232K. Now, so that's a tooltip. Another thing we can do is if we actually wanted to create that tooltip as another page, we can set it up as a drill through. So I've already done that. Now, the only difference with this is you want to make sure that that tooltip button is not on. So it's not. And then you also just need to pull in the field from the visual that you're trying to drill through on. So as you can see, the visual here is using both the sales rep name and then also the expected revenue. So we just need to pull in those two fields. So as you can see, I've added it here. Now, if we go back to that visual and we go onto the 232K and right click on it, we can then drill through. And as you can see, it filters the page for that data. And we can go up the top and go back. Now, I've also added that for the stage. So once again, you'll see the stage formatted. I've gone in and I've added that, that toggle. I might actually just add it stage formatted. Because we've already got the expected revenue, that would work anyway, but I'll quickly show you how it works. So say if we want to go in here and see all of the opportunities that we have in the qualified stage, we can just click on the visual, right click and go drill through, and here are all of the opportunities. Now that's pretty much it for the dashboard. Now, one other thing that I did want to add was the ability to, say when we drill through on a visual, I want to be able to click on a URL and actually go into the opportunity in Odoo. Now, the way that you do that is you just have to go back to Odoo, go into CRM, and then into a specific opportunity. Now, you'll notice that up the top in the URL, there's the number 32 here. So that actually relates to the ID of the opportunity. So all we really have to do is we just have to set the ID as a placeholder, and then we were able to create a URL for it. So if I just exit out of that, I can actually delete that measure. Okay. So if I go into CRM lead and then we create a new column and we just call that Oppo URL. Now, if we just did it like that, it's going to, well, all of the links are going to take us directly to that opportunity that we were looking at. So all we need to do is we need to change the last 32. So we put an and symbol here, and then we use the ID, which I actually just realized I haven't even added to the table yet. So we'll quickly go in and add that. Go to CRM lead, go ID. Actually, I'll have to add it back up here. ID. And add it in here. Okay. Then we'll close and apply that. All right, so that's loaded. Now, if we go and do that calculated column again, we'll call that Oppo URL equals, put that in quotations, and then we'll sub the 32 out for the ID. All right, so you can see all of those URLs are different now because that ID is obviously unique. Now, if we go over to our drill through table, we click on name because we want people to be able to click on the opportunity description and go into Odoo. So go conditional formatting, web URL. What field should we base this on? We'll change that to the URL. And now when we click on, say, Delta PC 10 computer desks, you'll see that that takes us into the opportunity in Odoo. All right, so I think that's pretty much it for the dashboard. I might just clean this up or change that to opportunities, won versus lost. Is there anything else we need to change? No, I think that's pretty good. Now, I know I rushed through the actual design of this quite a bit. I knew it would just take so long. This video would probably be 3 hours long if I did the whole design from scratch. But I think if you just pause the video in certain places and you go experiment with the different visuals in Power BI, you'll be able to come up with something very similar to this. But yeah, if you have any questions, any steps or anything that you need assistance with, just leave it in the comment section below. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.